Okay, listen, you've read the title for this video about 10 tiny issues that made you hate great recent video games, and I'm going to state this from the off. We are going to get very picky today, but remember, it's just a bit of fun. It's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek list because at the end of the day, all the games that we're talking about are actually pretty brilliant. But that being said, there is one or two tiny issues that, like I say, make you sit there and think, oh, if only they'd fix that. But still, it's just a drop in the ocean of the pleasure that these titles have given us. So let's all gather around and have some fun today. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 tiny issues that made you hate great recent video games. Number 10. No quitting to desktop. Elden Ring. Now, Elden Ring certainly isn't the only game guilty of this, but it is the one that's been pissing countless PC players off with it as of late. For reasons that remain rather unclear, the PC version of From Software's otherwise incredible action RPG lacks a simple quit to desktop option in its menu. Rather than pressing escape and being able to quit the game with a single click, you're forced to quit to the main menu, sit through the 2 splash screens, wait for the online connection to load, and only then can you finally exit the game. It can take around 20 seconds to do what any PC game should let you do in no more than 1 or 2. Terminate the session and get on with the rest of your day. Now, it might sound like a true nitpick, and yes, that's really what this list is all about, like I've said, but it's also a minor annoyance that becomes a deeply irritating one once you've sunk dozens or even hundreds of hours into this thing over innumerable play sessions. For such a wonderfully polished game, it's a bafflingly clunky piece of UI design. Number 9. Too much talking. POKÉMON Legends Arceus. POKÉMON Legends Arceus has been a surefire critical and commercial success, though that didn't stop many fans expressing frustration at Game Freak's decision to absolutely bombard players with reams of dialogue. The early hours of this game in particular are absolutely exhausting, with the unrelenting avalanche of NPC chit-chat thrown your way, much of it from boring characters who failed to deliver information in concise or entertaining fashion. As fun as the core tried and tested Pokemon gameplay is, getting through those first few hours of stamina-sapping lectures from NPCs, none of whom are voice-acted, is a real test for your love of the franchise. If we're being honest, nobody really cares about the plot of Pokemon games, so keeping it light and breezy is definitely the way for Game Freak to go. Instead, for all of the things that it got right, the start of this game was a sheer endurance trial. Number 8. The annoying photo mode WATERMARK. Resident Evil Village. Now, pretty much any AAA game worth a damn launches with a photo mode these days, and Resident Evil Village was no exception. It's admirably pretty bare bones as photo modes go, with the player locked into their own first-person perspective and unable to freely move around the lushly rendered environments, but the biggest slap in the face of all of this is the decision to include a Capcom watermark in any photos you take. Beyond the fact that this passive-aggressively imparts a sense of ownership over the images from Capcom, it also requires players to add an extra step of manually cropping the watermark out, wasting their time and making photo mode a lot less fun in the process. PC players were in luck, at least, as within 2 days of the game's release, a mod was created which removed the watermark, but no such luck for console players. It may seem like we're splitting hairs, and let's face it, I don't have many to begin with, but given that the majority of photo modes don't bother with this watermark nonsense, it does feel like Capcom is being rather over-aggressive here. Number 7. The awful voice acting. Forza Horizon 5. Forza Horizon 5 may well be the greatest racing game of the last 5 years. It is gorgeous, it is absurdly entertaining, and it gets almost everything right. Because those who play the game's story will unfortunately have to contend with its toe-curlingly poor voice acting from basically pointless human characters. Like most racing games that ill-advisedly attempt to staple a cinematic story onto the racing shenanigans, both the over-enthusiastic voice actors and cringeworthy writing are more than an impediment to the fun. Many also complained about the game's various Mexican and Latinx characters semi-randomly dropping Spanish words into their dialogue in a way that just wasn't realistic or authentic, seeming to suggest that developers Playground Games hadn't done their cultural homework. While some may find the overall goofy vocal performances charming, and they're certainly not a surprise to anyone who played Forza Horizon 4, it's a single damning strike against a game that is otherwise such a breathtaking achievement. Number 6. It takes a bit too long. It Takes Two. It Takes Two was one of 2021's most acclaimed games, scooping Game of the Year accolades at both the Game Awards and the DICE Awards, with many praising its ludicrously entertaining co-op multiplayer gameplay. And indeed, It Takes Two is an absolute blast to play with a friend, whether they're an expert gamer or somebody totally new to the medium. The problem is, though, is that ultimately it's a bit too long for its own good. Given that developer Hazelight's previous co-op multiplayer adventures, Brother, A Tale of Two Sons, and A Way Out were both fairly bite-sized stories clocking in at less than 6 hours, it was was quite surprising to see how comparatively epic It Takes Two turned out to be. For most players, it takes somewhere between 10 to 12 hours to clear the game, and while it absolutely provides a lot of bang for your buck, many felt that it was just too much of an ask for a game centered around co-op gameplay. For starters, most adults have pretty busy lives where it can be tough to set aside this much time to play a game with a friend, especially with all of us having wildly differing schedules. While if you're playing with a less than experienced gamer or perhaps a total non-gamer, that playtime would become massively prohibitive. Though there are those who certainly praised the length as ensuring greater value for money, the surprisingly beefy playtime also meant that some players may have taken months to find a friend and the time to actually beat it. Number 5. The Peter Parker redesign. Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered. Fans of Insomniac Games' Spider-Man rejoiced when they announced that a remaster was on the way for the PS5, only to get a rather unpleasant surprise when it was actually released. As gorgeous as the game looks in shiny 4K on the PS5, many expressed irritation at the developer's decision to change Peter Parker's face model to a different actor. The official party line from Insomniac is that they wanted a model whose facial structures more closely resembled Peter's voice actor Yuri Lowenthal, as this would make it easier to sync the voice work with the facial capture. But that wasn't really good enough for many fans, who were irked that the original Peter had been given a sudden and rather distracting design change. Some even went so far as to suggest this was done to make Peter more closely resemble Tom Holland's MCU Spider-Man, which he certainly does. It was a minor/major bone of contention for many revisiting the game on PS5, and with the redesign carrying over into Peter's supporting role in Spider-Man Miles Morales, it was a sticking point there as well. Number 4. Dialogue getting interrupted. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy was one of the most pleasantly surprising games of last year in a lot of ways. Unlike Square Enix's colossally disappointing The Avengers, it was a rip-roaring adventure that felt absolutely worth its namesake. It wasn't the most ambitious game in the world, but offered up an entertaining single-player experience with a surprisingly nuanced story and great dialogue throughout. It's a shame then that the game's dynamic dialogue system often results in entertaining and intriguing lines of chatter being cut off midway because of a trigger in the game prompts another character or event to interrupt them. Considering how unexpectedly strong the writing in this game is, it's frequently irritating that dialogue will routinely be cut off unless you're basically just standing still. While developers Eidos Montreal were clearly trying to replicate the naturalistic ebb and flow of real-life discussion, it often robbed players of a chance to savor and hang on to every line of written dialogue. It's not the end of the world or anything, but it sure is annoying. Number 3. The missing songs from the original releases. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 HD. Fans of the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater franchise were ecstatic when Activision announced that a remaster collection of the first 2 games in the series was coming their way. But that excitement was dimmed slightly by the follow-up revelation that not all of the game's original soundtracks would reappear in the remaster for boring legal or contractual reasons. Though Activision did, to their credit, secure almost all of the original tunes along with a bevy of new ones, many players still noted the absence of tracks such as Committed by Unsane, B-Boy Document 99 by the High and Mighty, and Out With The Old by Life. While this has no bearing at all on the quality of the gameplay or the visuals, it does ever so slightly undercut the nostalgia-laced appeal of that original soundtrack if a couple of songs are missing. Number 2. ALOY'S terrible hair physics. Horizon Forbidden West. Horizon Forbidden West is certainly one of the best games of the year so far, a thrilling, supremely polished AAA action-adventure game that nevertheless has been bugging players for one reason above all others, and that is Aloy's damn janky hair. The game as a whole is so richly, eye-wateringly realised, especially in 4K on PS5, that its less refined elements stick out like a sore thumb, and nothing more so than Aloy's distractingly iffy hair. Aloy may be as beautifully rendered as anything else in this game, but her hair is a chaotic nightmare. During gameplay, it'll frantically clip through not only herself, but her weapons, armor, and basically everything in the vicinity. In other cases, Aloy's hair will move about in unrealistic ways, flowing balletically around even when she's inside an area with no apparent drafts, making for some ridiculous moments. This was admittedly also a problem in Horizon Zero Dawn, so it's not massively surprising to see it again, even if many nevertheless hope that Guerrilla might have ironed things out for the new-gen sequel. Hair is undeniably one of the trickiest things to get right in games, but in this case it's so damn noticeable as to outright distract players from the mesmerizing experience that is unfolding around them. And number 1, no Japanese lip sync on the PS4 version. Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima is in many respects a fantastic game, a gorgeous open-world samurai adventure bolstered by incredible combat and a cinematic story. But many complained upon release that while the game allowed players to swap between English and Japanese audio as they prefer, all of the cutscenes are still only synced to the English audio. This felt like a colossal oversight for a AAA game from a major studio, and many understandably expected Insomniac Games to patch it in at a later date. But this never happened, and though the PS5 version of the director's cut did indeed include lip sync for the Japanese dialogue, PS4 owners of either version were left to go without. As for why something as elementary as lip sync was only available on the PS5, well, Sucker Punch's creative director Nate Fox claimed that it was because the PS5's SSD allowed them to render scenes in-engine, which were pre-rendered videos in the PS4 release, where it simply wasn't viable to include large video files with lip sync for both languages. While this explanation makes sense to an extent, it's still a massive disappointment that a game so thoroughly about Japanese history and culture doesn't even present its characters in an entirely genuine way across all platforms. Many saw the decision to tether it to the PS5 release as effectively sticking the true rendition of the game behind a paywall. At least with any possible sequel likely to release as a PS5 exclusive, they shouldn't run into the same problem again. And there we go, my friends. Those are 10 tiny issues that made you hate great recent video games. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comment section below. Like I said before, this is just a bit of fun, a bit of tongue-in-cheek, this list. So don't go thinking that I'm telling you that the games we spoke about today are bad in any way. I enjoyed pretty much every single one that I've managed to play. But still, hope you enjoyed it, and if you want to chat to me further, you can do so over on Twitter at RetroJ with a 0, or you can swing by Live and Let's Dice, where I do all of my streaming outside of work, and it'd be great to see you over there. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. Hope you're treating yourself well, my friend, both physically and mentally, because you deserve all of the best things in life, alright? And do not let anything or anyone else tell you otherwise. You are a massive ledge, alright? Now I want you to go out there and absolutely smash it today. I believe in you. As always, I've been Jules, you have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.